week, Sadaran draws the ladies' contest and knights' tournament to a close, ruling that Sir Blandivore has had his just deserts for unknightly behavior, both here and at the tourney, and that Squire Harold has won Florimel for his lawful paramour, though unfortunately Lady Florimel has disappeared. So with this, we open chapter 5 with Harold Shea disagreeably saying,
I get sick of the flatness of this country. And doesn't it ever rain?
On the white gelding he had purchased at Castle Caltrock, the armor that had been Sir Paradel's bundled up behind him. He had tried wearing it, but the heat made it unbearable. Chalmers was just taking his bearings with a crude jackstave he and Shea had managed to patch together. He remarked,
"Do you have sound? Lost." He's off.
I can't hear Lorelei.
No, he's offline.
Okay.
So I will take his place until he comes back. Harold,
you didn't hear my voice?
I'm sorry, I did, but I didn't know it was lost line. I didn't hear him. I heard you.
Okay.
I'm not paying attention. Sorry.
Okay. Should we start again, or?
Sure, why not?
Okay.
Since I've disrupted everything, sorry.
I get sick of the flatness of this country. And doesn't it ever rain?
He sat on the white gelding he had purchased at Castle Caltrock, the armor that had been Sir Paradel's bundled up behind him. He had tried wearing it, but the heat made it unbearable. Chalmers was just taking his bearings with a crude jackstave he and Shea had managed to patch together.
Harold, you're an incorrigible veriest. If we had cliffs and a downpour, you'd doubtless complain about that.
Shea grinned.
Touché, Doc. I'm going to get bored. I'd even welcome a lion for the sake of excitement.
Chalmers climbed back onto the ass.
Giddy up, Gustavus. I dare say you'll have plenty of excitement in this wood, if this wood harbors as many enchanters as they say. I rather wish you wouldn't challenge all the hard characters we encounter on the strength of your ability to fence.
What the hell? I've gotten away with it so far.
Undoubtedly, at the same time, it is just as well not to carry matters too far. I should hate to be left all alone.
A nasty, selfish point of view. Say, Doc, it's too bad the girls wouldn't come with us. That ebony spur of Britamart's gave me a feeling of solid comfort.
You're not acquiring sentimental fondness for that brawny lady.
Good Lord, no. She reminds me of Gert. I was just giving her practice in the theory and practice of feminine charm for snaring her own boyfriend. But say, if anybody's loopy over a girl, it's you. I saw the look on your face when Saturaine suggested Florimel had been carried off by enchantment.
Why, nothing of the sort. That is very well. The trouble with traveling with a fellow psychologist is that concealments are impossible. However, I will say that Florimel's manner gave me a pause. When the girdle refused to stay on anyone, I became certain of the operation of magic. The laws of probability should have produced at least one faithful lady among so many. I suppose Florimel was just an illusion. It was unfortunate. It was fortunate in a way. It gave us a good excuse to ask how to find an enchanter. Otherwise, they might have suspected us of trying to make common cause with their enemies. The fairy knights seem convinced that all enchanters are working against them. Perhaps they're right.
They rode in silence for a while. Then Shay said,
Looks like the woods begin around here.
a little stream crossed the track in front of them, and beyond it, the sparse timber gave place to dense forest. They dismounted, tying up Gustavus and the horse, which had been christened Adolphus, and produced their lunch. Both munched in silence for a moment. Then Chalmers said,
Harold, I wish you'd promise not to get into any more fights if...
Hey!
Shay leaped to his feet. Out from among the trees loped a pair of naked, hairy, 7-foot ape-men. They had huge ears with tufts of hair sprouting from them, and throat pouches like orangutans. In their hands were clubs. For a moment they stood at gaze, then came splashing through the stream at a gallop. Chalmers ran to untie the animals, but they were leaping about, crazy with fear. In a glance, Shay decided he could never reach Sir Paradel's sword. He would have to use the épée, feeble as that toothpick was against those huge clubs. The first of the 8 men ran at him, bellowing. Shay never knew whether he had gained his senses or lost his nerve, but the next instant he and Chalmers were running around and around the tethered animals, with the 8 men foaming through their tusks behind. One of the creatures boomed something at the other. On the next circuit, the fugitives were surprised to run head-on into one 8-man who had stopped and waited for them. Shay was in front. He saw the club swinging up in 2 hairy hands and did the only thing possible, extend the épée and fling himself forward in a terrible flash. His face was buried in fur and he was clutching at it for support. The hilt was wrenched from his hand, and the animal man went screaming off with the weapon sticking through him. Shay himself was running. Over his shoulder he saw Chalmers was running, with the other 8-man gaining, twirling up his club for the blow. Shay had an instant of horror and revulsion. Poor old Doc to pass out this way when he couldn't help. Twunk! The feathered butt of an arrow appeared in the thing's side, as though it had just sprouted there. The club missed Chalmers as the creature staggered and turned. Twunk! The second arrow took it in the throat, and it collapsed in a clump of bracken, screeching and thrashing. Shay tried to stop. Chalmers careened into him, and they went down together. Shay sat up and wiped leaf mold from his face. Footsteps preceded a polished, slim girl in a short-skirted tunic and soft leather boots. She had a bow in one hand and a light boar spear in the other, and she moved toward them at a springy trot, as though it were her normal gait. A feathered hat like Shay's sat on her red-gold hair, which was trimmed in a long bob. Shay got up.
Thanks, young lady. We owe you a life or two. I think the thing's about dead.
I'll make certain. Those losers are hard to kill.
She stepped to the bracken and jabbed. She seemed satisfied as she pulled the spear out, wiping its point on some moss.
Is the old man hurt?
Chalmers gained breath enough to sit up.
Just a puff. Winded. I am merely middle-aged. To whom do we owe our rescue?
The girl's eyebrows went up, Shay noticing they were a delightful color.
You know me not? I ate Belphoebe.
Well, I, Height, Sarald Shay, Esquire, and my friend Height Reed Chalmers, the Palmer, if that's how you say it.
That would be your blade sticking in the other loser?
Yes. What happened to it?
I will even show you. The creature did what erst I saw it. Losels.
Shay recalled the table at Castle Caltrock with Britomort telling Sir Erevan he would not find it easy to come to grips with Bussyrain, the enchanter, because Bussyrain's castle was, quote, in the wood where the losels breed.
We're on the right track, Doc.
he said to Chalmers as he helped the latter up and followed Belphoebe. Chalmers merely gave him a sidelong glance and sang softly.
But when
But for the way his
his regiment ran, his place was at the fore. Oh, it's celebrated, cultivated, and
Setting a good pace for you. Here's our other locel.
He pulled the épée from the repellent corpse. Belphoebe gazed at the instrument with interest.
Mary, a strange weapon. May I try its balance?
Shay showed her how to hold the épée and made a few lunges, enjoying to the full his first recent chance to show off before an attractive girl. Belphoebe tried.
Ouch! Those poses of yours are as awkward as a Mussulman at Mass, Squire Harold.
She laughed and tossed the épée back to him.
Will you show me more another day?
Glad to.
Shay turned to Chalmers.
Say, Doc, it seems to me we were eating lunch when the fracas started. Maybe the young lady would like to help us finish it.
Chalmers gulped.
I had this hurling experience had quite driven the thought of food out of my mind. But if Miss Belphoebe would like to, by all means.
If I may give that, I may get. Sorry, give me that again. If I may give that, I may get. Hola, attend.
She pulled out an arrow and tiptoed slowly away from them, peering intently into the greenery. She had tried to follow her gaze, but could see nothing but foliage. Then Belphoebe brought up the bow, aimed, drew, and released all in one movement. To Shay it looked as though she had loosed at random. He heard the arrow strike. Down from the trees fell a large, green, macaw-like bird. It struck the leaf mold with a thump, and a couple of green feathers gyrated down after. Gustavus and Adolphus still trembled and tugged at their reins when the three approached them. Shay soothed them and took them down to the stream to drink, while Chalmers started a fire and Belphoebe stripped the feathers from the parrot. Presently she was toasting the bird on the end of a stick. She was so deft in rustling a meal in the open that Shay felt no desire to compete with her in scoutcraft. Chalmers, he was surprised to observe, was holding his right forefinger against his left wrist. He asked,
What are you doing, Doc? Taking your pulse?
Yes, my heart seems to be holding up all right, but I'm afraid I wasn't cut out for this type of work, this type of life, Harold. If it were not for pure scientific interest in the problems.
Oh, cheer up. Say, how's your magic coming along? A few good spells would help more than all the hardware put together.
Well, now, I think I may claim some progress. There was that business of the cat that flew away. I find I can levitate small objects without difficulty, and I have had much success in conjuring up mice. In fact, I fear I left quite a plague of them at Sutterand's castle. But I took care to conjure up a similar number of cats, so perhaps conditions will not be too bad.
Yeah, but what about the general principles?
Well, the laws of similarity and contagion hold. They appear to be the fundamental Newtonian principles in the field of magic. Obviously, the next step is to discover a system of mathematics arising from these fundamentals. I was afraid I should have to invent my own, as Einstein was forced to adapt tensor analysis to handle his relativity equations. But I think I have discovered such a system ready-made in the calculus of classes, which is a branch of symbolic logic. Here, I'll show you.
Chalmers fished through his garments for writing materials.
As you know, one of the fundamental equations of class calculus, which a native academic acquaintance of mine once thought had something to do with Marxism is this. That is, the class alpha plus the class non-alpha equals the universe. But in magic, the analogous equation appears to be the class alpha plus the class non-alpha includes the universe. But it may or may not be limited there too. The reason seems to be that in magic, one deals with a plurality of universes. Magic thus does not violate the law of conservation of energy. It operates along the inter-universal vectors, perpendicular, in a sense, to the spatial and temporal dimensions. It can draw on the energy of another universe for its effects. Evidently, one may readily have the case of two magicians, each summoning energy from some universe external to the given one for diametrically opposed purposes. Thus, it must have been obvious to you that the charming lady Duessa, somewhat of a vixen, I fear, was attempting to operate an enchantment of her own to overcome that of the girdle. That she was unable to do so.
The fowl is ready, gentlemen.
Me to carve?
Certes, if you will, Master Harold.
She pulled some big leaves off a catalpa-like tree, spread them out, laid the parrot on them, and attacked the bird with his knife. As he hacked at the carcass, he became more and more dubious of the wisdom of psittacophagy. He gave Belphoebe most of the breast. Chalmers and he each took a leg.
What's this I hear? And the subject of magic? Are you practitioners of the art?
Well, I would not go so far as to say...
We know a couple of little tricks.
White or black?
White as the driven snow.
Belphoebe looked hard at them. She took a bite of parrot, and seemed to have no difficulty with it. Shay had found his piece of the consistency of a mouthful of bed springs.
Few are the white magicians of Fairy, and all are entered. Had there been additions to the roster, my lord Artegall had so acquainted me when I last saw him.
Good Lord. Are you a policewoman, too?
Sorry. A what?
One of the companions.
Nay, not a jot. I rove where I will, but virtue is a good master. I am, but stay, you meet not my query by half.
Which query?
How it is that you be unknown to me, though you claim to be Sorcerer's White.
I guess we aren't good enough yet to be worth noticing.
That may be. I, too, have what you call a couple of little tricks. Yet 'twere in modesty in me to place myself beside Cambinia.
Anyhow, my dear young lady, I am convinced from my own studies of the subject that the distinction between black and white magic is purely verbal, a spurious distinction that does not reflect any actual division in the fundamental laws that govern magic.
Good Palmer, what say you, no difference between black and white? 'Tis plainly heresy.
Not at all. The people of the country have agreed to call magic white, then practiced for lawful ends by duly authorized agents of the governing authority, and black when practiced by unauthorized persons for criminal ends. That is not to say that the principles of the science or art are not the same in either event. You should confine such terms as black and white to the objects for which the magic is performed, and not apply it to the science itself, which, like all branches of knowledge, is morally neutral.
But it's not that the spell used to, let us say, kidnap a worthy citizen be different from that used to trap a malefactor?
Verbally, but not structurally.
After some minutes of wrangling, Chalmers held up the bones of his drumstick.
I think I can, for instance, conjure the parrot back on this bone, or at least fetch another parrot in place of the one we ate. Will you concede, young lady, that that is a harmless manifestation of the art?
For now, though I know you schoolmen say, I admit this, I concede that, and ere long one finds oneself conceited into a noose.
Therefore it would be white magic, but suppose I desire the parrot for some illegal purpose.
What manner of crime, for example, good sir?
I can't think just now. Assume that I did. The spell would be the same in either case.
But would it? Let me see you conjure a brace of parrots, one fair, one foul, and then truly I'll concede.
Harold, what would be a legal purpose for to which to conjure a parrot?
If you really want an answer, no purpose would be as legal as any unless there's something in the game laws. Personally, I think it's the silliest damned argument.
No purpose it shall be.
He got together a few props, the parrot's remains, some ferns, a pair of scissors from his kit, one of Belphoebe's arrows. He stoked the fire, put grass on it to make it smoke, and began to walk back and forth pigeon-toed, holding his arms out and chanting,
O bird that speaks with the words of men, mocking their wisdom of tongue and pen.
Crash! A monster burst out of the forest and was upon them before they could get to their feet.
And that concludes this week's Mathematics of Magic.
Boy, you can see that was picked from our vet, that ending.
Yes! Well, I guess we're all on the edge of it. So,